Grandma, so you ended up at Karen's place, huh? That's what my brother said over the phone. My brother and his wife had basically ousted Grandma from her own home, where she lived alone, and made themselves comfortable. Grandma had walked all the way to our home. I confronted my brother, but he showed zero remorse. Their attitude remained that they'd done nothing wrong. These freeloaders who had no home and imposed themselves on Grandma had the nerve to do this to her. I couldn't contain my outrage after taking Grandma in, but I knew the truth. Eventually, my brother and his wife would have to bow before Grandma. My name is Karen. I married Bob last year and have been enjoying the honeymoon phase ever since. It was a happiness-hard one. I lost my father when I was young, and my mother passed away from an illness when I was in elementary school. I have one older brother named John, and we lost both parents when we were young. Our grandma took us in and raised us. Grandma had been a career woman in a big corporation and had just retired after losing my grandfather to illness. Taking in 2 kids at her age must have been tough. Still, she overcame the family's objections and took us in. She raised me with so much love to fill the void of not having parents. After high school, I found a job and met my husband there. After a long period of dating, we got married. It felt like I could finally give back to Grandma. I had grown up as a very ordinary girl, but my brother was a different story. He started acting out in middle school and high school, causing a lot of trouble for Grandma. Eventually, he dropped out of high school and joined a group of juvenile delinquents, making matters worse. At some point, he just left home without saying a word. We lost contact, but a year ago, he suddenly messaged to say he'd gotten married. While it's his freedom to marry, I was outraged that he hadn't told Grandma. Our paths couldn't be more different, my brother and I. By pure coincidence, we'd gotten married around the same time. He didn't attend my wedding, and I found out about his only afterward. It felt as if we were no longer siblings bound by blood. Since then, my husband and I have had almost no contact with my brother and his wife. Then one day, my phone rang. It was my brother. Stunned, I reluctantly answered. "Hello, brother. Long time no see." I could sense my own awkwardness talking to my brother after so long. Honestly, I didn't know how to deal with him.
Yeah, Karen, actually, I have something to tell you.
My brother is still as arrogant as ever, didn't bother with pleasantries and got right to the point. And this is how I came up with.
Look, I've decided to move in with Grandma, so I'm letting you know.
My brother astonishingly mentioned he wants to live with our grandmother. What's he thinking? Until now, he's been pretty much ignoring her and doing his own thing. Curious, I gently asked him why the sudden interest in living with Grandma. His explanation leaves me in disbelief.
We got kicked out of our place, so no place to go, you know. We were staying with some friends, but we can't impose forever, right?
My brother grinned as he recounted the story. Unapologetically, he seemed entirely unfazed.
So I reached out to Grandma after a while, right? She told me she's living alone in the new house she moved to last year. Even said it's bigger with more rooms than her last place. Sounded perfect for me.
From his tone, it was clear he fully intended to move in with our grandmother. But from what I could gather, he hadn't discussed this with Grandma yet. Well, hold on. Are you making plans without Grandma's permission? Clearly, this would be a nuisance to her. I mean, getting kicked out of your home as an adult isn't exactly a minor issue. What could he have possibly done to deserve that? When I asked, my brother responded with a dismissive answer.
I kind of spent a lot on casinos and couldn't pay rent. I do have a job, you know, but I just didn't have the money for rent. So the landlord got annoyed and kicked me out. Can you believe they told me to leave just like that? After all, I was the one living there.
My brother spoke as if recounting a funny story, laughing the entire time. He sounded like a victim,
but I thought he got what he deserved. Was he even aware that his actions were out of line? Apparently, my sister-in-law was also furious at the landlord and felt pretty down about getting kicked out. Though it was clear as day they were in the wrong. What a fitting couple. Anyway, you need to talk to Grandma first and apologize for losing touch all this time. Even as his younger sister, I had to set him straight. Though I suspected he wasn't listening, I felt the need to say it. Less than a month later, on a Sunday, my husband and I were relaxing at home when the doorbell rang. Wondering who it could be, I checked the video monitor and saw my grandmother. She showed up at our door without any prior notice. "Grandma, what brings you here all of a sudden?" I felt uneasy and immediately opened the front door. Grandma stood at the entrance, looking apologetic. "Hey, Karen, sorry for surprising you like this." Despite her age, she had come all this way on her own. I noticed my grandmother only carrying a small suitcase that even an elderly person could easily handle. Given this unusual situation, I decided to invite her into my home to chat. "So what brings you here without notice? You have visited before, but you've never just shown up." It was obvious my grandmother had something on her mind. She looked unusually downcast. I immediately knew something was up. "So, John and Emma suddenly showed up at my house. They said they wanted to live with me for a while. I agreed, but then they started treating me like I'm in the way." The words from my grandma were shocking, to say the least. She continued. "Emma kicked me out of the living room. John told me I was in the way when I was drinking coffee at the kitchen table. I had no choice but to just stay in my room." I was floored. Turns out, my brother and his wife had invaded my grandmother's home without permission, right after talking to me on the phone. And they made themselves right at home. Worse, they were treating my grandmother like she was the nuisance. "They won't even let me watch TV in the living room. They told me to eat after them. Why should a homeowner have to put up with this? I'm tired of hearing you're in the way every day. It feels like they've taken over my house." She said she had told them multiple times to leave if they weren't happy, but they just kept staying. It seems Grandma didn't have the energy to kick them out. In the end, she couldn't take it anymore and fled to our home. My grandma, a woman of age but full of vitality, said this in a calm yet clear tone. She had traveled here on her own, taking multiple trains to get to us. Although my grandmother is old, she is a woman with vitality. After talking it over with my husband, we decided to let Grandma stay with us for a while. When I told her she was welcome to stay, I could see she was relieved. But the outrageous behavior of my brother and his wife is just unforgivable. They barged into her life like parasites and showed unbelievable disrespect. I called my brother that day to let him know that Grandma was staying with me. "Oh, so Grandma is at your place, huh? Thought she went there to give us a break." My brother responds carelessly, showing neither concern for our missing grandma nor awareness that he had essentially kicked her out. What's his deal after treating her like she's in the way? I felt angry at his words. "What are you doing to Grandma? She didn't come here to make it easier for you. You practically drove her out." I immediately called him out on it, but my brother showed no signs of guilt. "Well, Grandma is old, and it's kind of boring with her around. We were just ignoring her. Then before we knew it, she was gone." How could he say something so cruel? I was fuming at my brother and his wife for so rudely treating Grandma despite barging into her house. "If you're going to freeload at Grandma's, then take care of her." Grandma never asked them to live with her. They visited because they needed something.
Shouldn't they at least act so as not to inconvenience her? Grandma is already old. I told my brother it's only right to take care of her.
Why do we have to take care of Grandma?
My brother couldn't grasp the concept of his role as a freeloader.
Stop complaining. If you have an issue, you take care of her. Grandma is at your place now, so it works out better for us. Just tell Grandma not to worry. We're taking good care of her house.
It seemed like my brother found it burdensome to be around our aging grandma. He wanted to keep the house, but wanted to dump the responsibility for grandma on us. It was utterly unreasonable, but I replied,
Really? You're okay with that?
I confirmed with him that he had absolutely no intention of taking care of grandma.
That's what I'm saying. If you care so much, then you take care of her. We don't care.
My brother sounded completely fed up. I suppose he finds grandma to be a burden. He said he's leaving it all to me.
Yes, thank you. What are you so happy about? Anyway, Grandma's gonna stay with you now, so take care of her, will you?
I couldn't help but show my excitement. Taking care of grandma is something I love to do. In fact, I'm more than happy to do it. It's also really nice that grandma chose to be with me and not my brother, especially when thinking about the long term. My brother seemed completely clueless about why this would be a good thing. Evidently, my brother, who had happily pushed grandma out of the house to claim it, doesn't get it. Thinking I've said enough to my brother, I was about to hang up when grandma stepped next to me. "I have just one thing to say to him," she said. I nodded silently and switched the phone to speaker mode. "John, listen closely. Since you've kicked me out, I won't do anything for your animal. You're on your own now. Don't expect any help from me in the future." Grandma's words were gentle but stern, directed at my brother on the other end of the line. She had put up with my brother's nonsense for so long, and this felt like a severing of ties. But my brother seemed unmoved, responding with a snarky comment.
Big deal. We don't need to rely on you, Grandma. We young ones will take good care of the house. Just live your life peacefully over there, Grandma.
And just like that, he hung up. From now on, my brother and his wife were going to live in Grandma's house without any help from her. Apparently, they hadn't considered what that actually meant. Then my husband and I started living with Grandma, who's advanced in years but still full of life. She quickly adjusted to life at our place and even started going out for walks and shopping. Fast forward 3 months. Out of the blue, my brother and his wife showed up at our house, and they immediately began to apologize deeply.
"Grandma, we're sorry. Please come back."
My brother was apologizing loudly. Next to him, Emma was also apologizing. They were begging Grandma to come back home.
"And why should she come back? Weren't you the ones who arrogantly said you don't need her?"
I said to my brother, letting my irritation show. My brother shot me a glare for a moment before quickly lowering his face, almost begging Grandma in a whisper.
"I can't make ends meet without you, Grandma. We can't even pay the electric bill, the phone bill, or the water bill."
I had already figured they were short on money. My brother and his wife probably thought that as long as they stayed in Grandma's place, she'd bail them out. But that's not how it works. Even if the house is in Grandma's name, they're the ones living there. So it's only fair they contribute to the household expenses. That's just basic responsibility, which this couple clearly lacked.
"Besides," my brother continued, "I never expected it to be this expensive.
He began to elaborate about unexpected bills they'd received.
It's property taxes. The bill came and I was shocked. Grandma, it's too much for us. The invoice is in your name.
It seemed that the property tax bill had taken my brother by surprise. Grandma's house, which they moved into last year, was situated in a prime residential area of New York. The value of the land alone was astronomical. They had essentially taken that house from Grandma without a second thought.
Why do you have so much money, Grandma, to live in a house like that?
My brother asked, bewildered. With a sigh, Grandma began to speak. I'm a private investor, you know? I started investing and managing my assets around the time you left. It turned out pretty well, and I made good money. So, I bought a nice home where I could relax. I also wanted to leave something for you guys. Grandma had succeeded as an investor. My brother and his wife were clueless about that, and they had wondered why Grandma could afford a house in such a high-end neighborhood. If you can't make a proper life in that house, then you should leave. Don't ever come back. From now on, I'll entrust everything to Karen, Grandma said sternly, demanding the house keys back. At her words, my brother's face turned ashen.
Grandma, wait, please forgive us. If we leave there, we'll have nowhere to go.
But Grandma had already made up her mind and wasn't budging. The moment my brother abandoned her, she had disowned him. Apologizing now was too little, too late. In the end, Grandma moved back into her home, and my brother and his wife had to leave. On the day Grandma returned, they walked away from her estate with faces of utter despair. I heard they'd been bouncing from one cheap hotel to another since then. Living like that was unsustainable, and they eventually split up due to constant fights. It seems my sister-in-law and my brother are cut from the same cloth. Both are estranged from their family and seem lost. My brother, saddled with debt from gambling, is desperately working a live-in part-time job. However, I've heard he deeply regrets the reality that our grandmother has cut him off and he has nowhere left to turn. It's too late for him to fix anything now, and neither our grandmother nor I want anything to do with it. All we hope is that he doesn't bother anyone else from here on out. As for me, I recently gave birth to my first child, a boy. Our family is growing and life is fulfilling. I have a good relationship with my grandmother, who even went so far as to draft a will leaving all her assets to me and my spouse. Eventually, we plan to move into my grandmother's mansion. Until then, we're diligently saving up and getting our finances in order. I don't want to end up like my brother and his wife, making a spectacle of ourselves. I've been learning how to manage assets from my grandmother. Every day, I calmly do what needs to be done, keeping an eye on the future.